This week in Smogon Champions League was kinda weird, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, based on some of the teams, some of the games as well. So we got a lot to talk about this week. One thing I will note immediately before we get into it, we got multiple stall games today, but thankfully for us, none of them went 100 turns. So that's very thoughtful of our people that decided to bring teams, and we actually got to see still some, innovative sets once again. So we'll talk about that, talk about why they got ran, and how they did, of course. You've been enjoying this content, go subscribe right now if you're not subscribed. I'm not going to ask nicely, I'm just going to tell you, go do it right now. Because there's 50% of y'all watching at this very moment that are not yet subscribed. As I record this video feeling kinda sick today, as I've felt for the past couple days now, you know what, it would mean a lot to me, and we get closer to 10k subs. So I think that's cool. And our first game of this, TKO versus GXC. Now, one of the things you'll notice in this week, we got a good few new people to NU, at least in this tournament playing. We got, okay, not as many people as thought, but we got Mikhail De Vesta, Snow Jennery, who actually has played NU quite a lot in the past, and then we got TKO, who has also played NU in some NU tournaments, but it'd be like Gen 6, so does it really count? You tell me. But in this first game, I think this is actually a pretty cool way to see the duality of the tier, because you've got stall versus hyper offense, and HO from a person who's not played NU at all, this gen makes a lot of sense. As a result, GXC stalling them makes a lot of sense too, because, opposite ends of the spectrum, generally I would say HO doesn't have the best time versus stall, but you can always tech some random setup sweeper to have a better matchup, and you also doesn't have unaware Pokemon, so that's actually pretty important, because you don't feel obligated to maybe run, like, say, Stored Power on this Mesprit. You can instead just be Psyshock and retain a very advantageous Chansey matchup. Now, GXC does have the Ditto. This kind of just, it makes trying to play the game really hard. You're going to have to, if you're TKO, probably be like sub on Grim or like Jolt or you need substitute on something. Because sub will prevent the imposter boosts, otherwise it's always just a dangerous game to set up if you're setting up with a mon that cannot beat itself. But let's get into it. So Lycan will lead, Palisand lead here, and GXC, being an astute student of the game, just attacks, because the stupid dog is always going to go for taunt turn 1. So he just gets rid of the spawn immediately. TKO then going into Salazzle for an interesting reason here. Now, it ends up being Sash Lazzle. I think he just valued the damage on the Palisand and also said, hey, look at this dude's team. Salazzle ain't ever winning, they got a Hariyama and a Chansey. But I still remember seeing that and going, huh, interesting Salazzle switch. So the Yama comes in, takes the Fire Blast, goes for a knock, expecting the preservation of Salazzle. It is still a fast mon. You can still threaten Sludge Bomb poisons on the team. It's also your best way of actually hurting the Avalugg. As we see here, the Lug now taken down to Sturdy. He gets a spin-off, but the Rock's certainly super important in this game. And now, Grimmsnarl's opened up a lot, and Scyther's opened a lot by seeing that table taken down. And the Grim actually reveals Drain Punch too, which means it won't be sub, but here we see it. Charm Chansey! Now, I want to talk real quick, because we have seen, in the past, certain specialized setup sweepers that are made specifically to take on stall. And one of them, if we think back to what gen would this be? Maybe 7, maybe 8, is Calm Mind or Fresh, Arceus Dark. This would be Gen 7 because there's no Arceus in Gen 8. And that set kind of murks stall because, well, you don't really have a lot that's standing in the way. And I say murk stall, right? It's not like you single-handedly beat it down, right? Because stall can still have means like Ho-Oh, checking it pretty decently. You can have things like Xerneas on stall, Arceus Fairy that can withstand it. But the idea is you're not caring about hazards because you got Recover. You're not caring about status because you got Refresh. And Dark is such a good offensive typing that you're okay with that being your only attack. So you'd see something like Confide Blissey get run. Because if Blissey is your main way of taking on special attackers, this also applies to Xerneas, by the way. You can always just go Blissey, tank a hit, Confide down the boost, and you should be able to win a 1v1. So here we see Chansey running Charm, because the mon does kind of have some free move pool slots. When you've got Stealth Rock on the Palisand, I mean, what moves does Chansey really need? outside of Seismic Toss and Soft Boil. You'd assume Heal Bell probably on stall, because having a Cleric is very useful, but that last move could be like Calm Mind, it could be Shadow Ball even, it could be Thunder Wave, it could be something like Charm. And we see Charm here just because Chansey is often used to set up fodder for physical attackers. Because, well, you expect it to switch, they're just going to boost. And Chansey here, as you saw, it's able to stay in and just throw off a Charm, and then the Grimm's actually the one that's forced out. So, pretty cool. Palisade blocks the CC, and it will die to the dual wing beat here, but with the helmet chip, it actually doesn't even die. Wow, I forgot this is what happened. So Palisade actually tanks that hit. It's going to be able to also shore it back to full. Very, very unfortunate for TKO, because the Scyther's also almost dead now. Not like the Mon was going to win the game for him, but hey, it could have helped. As we see here, pretty unfortunate special defense drop now. Pretty unfortunate Terrastalized turn by GXC. He expected a crunch that did not come out. But he thankfully dodges a player up that wouldn't have one-shot Palisade, but would have taken it really, really low. And I mean, we get the little dash in chat. I'm going to be honest, I don't think it mattered that much, but it's still annoying. So what are y'all's thoughts on the new little replays background? I think the page looks really clean now. Really like the aesthetic. But now, we're going to see a setup war between two special attackers. This card Akuno being slower than Mesprit tells me that it's very, very physically bulky, and the Psyshock damage kind of affirms that too. GXC easily able to trade here. Now, he doesn't go for a recover. Reason being is because you always have your Ditto, and you just copy the Mesprit after it KOs your Articuno here. And from there, Mesprit will be winning. Well, Ditto will be winning, but it's disguised as a Mesprit because you're faster. This Psyshock crit, I don't believe mattered, and even if it did, I don't think this Mesprit's Draining Kiss was going to do enough to stave off the next Psyshock or take it out. I don't think it would have put it in quick attack range either, if I had to guess. So, we saw in this game, Stall dominant versus HO, shutting it down entirely. A little bit of luck, of course, involved, especially with the damage rolls on Palisade. My guess is those are actually kind of favorable, though. 21 was probably closer to the upper end, 17 the lower end. Palisade was at, what, like 41? 40%? So, in the middle, hey, 19, it would have lived over 2 turns. Now we get, once again, Stall versus, I don't really know what to call this. This is like, it's balance with special attack spam. And it's actually, I remember I was watching this game. And I saw the Magneton doing very, very little damage, and I ended up thinking it must be Magnet Pull. Because you look at Elias's team. He's got a double Dragon. Magnet Pull makes a lot of sense then. You can trap the Steel types, and just get to spam off Dracos even more easily. No, it actually ends up being Analytic revealed. And I'm kind of just, I look at his team this game, and I'm like, how do you beat Chansey? Because he did bring his special physical Goodra this game, and so naturally, because you kind of have to, right? Imagine this team, but it's special Goodra. How are you ever beating Chansey outside of, like, Tatsugiri somehow muscling through it with a whole bunch of boosts, right? It doesn't seem like it's ever happening. Now, I can still see it happening, because you got Goodra for knock. Even if you're special Goodra, you can still run knock off. So maybe you could knock the Chansey, and then you go Tatsu, Nasty Plot up a couple times. Maybe your Terra Ghost even, so you dodge Seismic, and then you can pop that with the Draco. You might actually win the exchange. Wait, yeah, still doesn't sound too good. So, that was one of the first things I saw this game. A preview, I'm like, how do you ever beat Chansey? Even with physical Goodra, I don't think you've got a good time. There's even a Yama on this team too. That's going to be specially defensive. It's going to take some hits. And, you know, I say it's Stall, there's a Lazzle. This is just kind of something Stall has done historically, where maybe you've got one fast Mon. This could be like anything from Protect Toxic to the standard utility set you'll see of like knockoff Encore with dual stabs. It could be even sub-toxic if Danny wanted to get real nasty with it. Thankfully, I did not help him test this team because, dear God, I would have had a conniption. But also, this Hariyama, you know, Stall has to have a win con. You don't want your team to just be a whole bunch of bulky Pokemon that sit around and just hope to win the game through sheer attrition. So if you're talking bulk up Yama, it's kind of nasty this game. It's gonna be very hard to take out with anything. Avalug's like the only mon that really truly beats it. You could say Gligar has a decent matchup versus it. I'm here to tell you right now, that Gligar, ain't doing damage unless there's a bulk up. So let's see. So we see the Goodra lead in the Gligar. Danny always gonna switch here. And Elias knows that, so he doubles into Gligar because he expects Chansey and he can just get rocks. Now here, he knows he's got a slow Gligar, so he stays in, blocks that Toxic, gets a nice little slow U-turn, brings in the Tatsu. Oh god, the Tatsus are coming, and then he doubles right back to Goodra because he knows that Chansey's coming out. This gives him a knock. So he's gotten one condition achieved for this game. It costs him a Goodra T-Wave, but that's okay. It also costs him an Avalugg T-Wave, which is also okay, but like we said at preview, one condition to maybe win this game. Get rid of this thing's a Violite. There's a chance from there the Tatsugiri could nasty plot up. He also kind of throws away that chance by bringing it on a Body Press, but honestly, look at his team. He doesn't have a lot of great mons switching to Lug. But here we see it. Chansey folds to Tatsugiri because it doesn't have that Violite. That is huge. Now it lets the Yama in, and you're going to see what I was talking about now. Hariyama goes for a bulk up here. And he's going to Terra Steel because he saw the Toxic. He does not want to be poisoned. He successfully blocks it here. Look at this Ice Punch chip. And watch what little Earthquake does here. Like I said, it bounced off. Yama takes down Gligar. This also tells me that it's not Bullet Punch Yama, which will be maybe a little bit annoying in the grand scheme. I don't think it actually matters in this kind of game, but in other games it would be a lot worse. This one, though, you want Ice Punch because it lets you always beat Gligar. Otherwise, the Earthquakes would have been far more impactful. And yeah, Tatsu also dead now. So this is the calc, by the way, it made me think this was Magnet Pull. Because I just assumed Gligar would take more than 38. But it turns out this Gligar's got like a ton of special bulk. Of the Magneton, in spite of being analytic, just somehow does not do more, which I found really funny. But you're going to see a theme in this game from here on. You can see this mag's going to come out a ton. This is where we see that it's actually analytic. Because, look at that. That's not just a normal damage roll. So the ult comes out. It defogs away the rocks. This also lets you know, this Avalugg does not have to be Rapid Spin. It's got an extra move now. So that lets it be Iron Defense, it could be Curse. Pick your pick, really. Gives Danny another nice option to try and win with late game. And we get the reveal here that this Goodra was actually physical. That pair ends up being quite impactful because Goodra would have been able to defeat Yama 1v1 without it. But hey, it is what it is. It's a game we play. And I still think even from here, Elias can somehow win it. He's just going to have to navigate that Magneton very, very well. And we also see here, I mean, Danny does not seemingly have a great way of beating down the Avalugg. Spamming out body presses, trying to see if maybe Elias will switch because, you know, he's not incentivized to switch out right now. And he reveals Curse now. So this thing cursing up is quite scary. Because this will lose eventually. If this curses up too much especially. Long term, this Lug defeats this one. It's just a matter of getting enough paralyses and just, you know, slowly beating it down, winning the PowerPoint war. So really, what has to happen for Elias now is he has to always bring in Mag on an Ice Spinner. He can never let it get Earthquaked. So like if Earthquake came, not Earthquake, Body Press, my bad. Like if that Mag came out on the Body Press there, game was joeable. But this kind of sequence is one you always want to make sure you get. Where you get the Mag in on that Ice Spinner, and then Mag's basically got a free Volt. Or even free Flash Cannon, admittedly. Flash is really useful now. Brings Lug back in though now here. And for the next however many turns, I forget how long this battle goes on for, eventually I will probably just start skipping turns because the game gets kind of uneventful. You will see Elias try his best to have this thing sturdy broken, because Mag obviously needs sturdy broke to be able to defeat the Avalugg. It can't, otherwise it'll be at full. You're going to try and see have that. And you're going to see Danny just try and not allow, basically, Magneton to come in for free. So he'll throw off body presses randomly versus this Avalugg, so it means to try and, you know, fish for a Mag switch in. Otherwise, he'll just throw off Ice Spinners because they, you know, still hit the Mag. They also actually do damage to table. So let's start skipping some turns because this is very uneventful. One thing to keep in mind is the recover power points. Both these Avalugg down to 3 at this point. Danny's Avalugg, though, will always be favored because it can boost. And here, again, you see Ice Spinner ends up being what is hit. But because this Avalugg didn't have Sturdy broken, and also it just wouldn't have even been KO'd from full. It could have been at 99, it still would have eaten that up very easily. Danny actually doesn't give a crap, and he trades. And from here, I mean, it's pretty trivial. Toxic is what happens here. This Chansey can actually be kind of annoying with how low Avalugg is. Like, it's in Seismic Toss range. So the Toxic here is literally just to force Chansey out. And now, you're able to then get your Avalugg back in versus Elias's. And then get the recover off, and then you're in a fine spot. So this Chansey comes out now, you just recover all that up, and you're not too concerned. It's got a Seismic a couple times. You just need to be able to get your last 2 recovers off, and then you'll body press the Chansey into oblivion. So you're going to see this Seismic Toss a couple times. Heal will eventually be forced to go into Avalugg anyway. As you see, that body press damage is just too much, and he can't really afford to lose the Chansey, because it's the only means of beating Salazzle. I mean, the other means is, you know, if it's like Fire Blast, it misses, but you're going to see here, now both are out of recover. This Ice Spinner boosted is just doing too much, and there's no way for Elias's Avalugg to defeat Danny's. So I'm going to just skip these turns, because, yeah, the game's over. Now we get what was one of the games of all time. Because you look at Snowgeneer's team, and I'm going to be honest, I saw it, and I'm like, okay, is this hyper offense? Because you've got Jolteon, Decidueye, Tatsugiri. This is a core we have seen lots from Freezeye on his HOs. And then you see a Primeape too, and you know, Primeape's a pretty standard, it's not standard at all, I can't even say it. You know, Primeape is a mon that could go on HO, because you get the Rage Fist, got the bulk up, you add a little bit of defense to that team, because it's probably holding in a Violite. Got Taunt, maybe you support something like a Focus Sash Salazzle. Obviously there's nothing like that to support on this team. But I remember looking at this team and going like, okay, why is there a Decidueye, not a Decidueye, a Gligar, and a Kaparaja? You know, it made no sense. I'm like, okay, is this just Lead Rocks Raj with maybe like a Custat Berry? So you have maybe a little more defensive presence, but you can also get that little goobing going. And then like Scale Shot SD Gligar? No, I was very wrong. And I just, Mikhail's team, I kind of look at him like, there's something about it I don't like. At the same time, there's nothing I could really say that absolutely murks them, so I'm just kind of chilling. So the Goodger's led with, Gligar's led. You're gonna get the common trend of knock here. Raj takes any fire move, so Siri's gonna stay in. You know, Flamethrower in this case, Mon eats that up. And we see here again, Iron Head chip. He was also lefty, so, you know, just standard defensive Raj. And the Gligar comes out, and I know, it's just standard defensive Gligar with U-turn. But then the Primeape comes out, and it's like Scarf Primeape with U-turn. So nothing's making sense to me as a spectator. We see the Tatsus come out. Surf on the Raj here is pretty free. Guy like me goes for Nasty Plot here, of course. Siri's a guy like me. And I remember when I was watching this game here, you're going to see the Surf here. The next turn, I said audibly, guy like me goes for Rapid Spin here. And yeah, Siri, unfortunately, is a guy like me, because he went for Rapid Spin and just died. I think Surf was probably always the better play, but you know what? I respect it. Tossed away this dog shit mod. Tatsugiri once again doing nothing. I will never let the people trying to talk this mon up as like some incredible mon get away with it. This mon is not that good. I'm not gonna say it's a bad mon. It is a veritably good Pokemon. But oh my god, no, it is not this like A rank, A plus rank threat. Please. Please stop. And yeah, the group goes for a bulk of just 5 million to this. Tells me that's a very specially bulky Gligar. And we see Lash Out revealed, a move you don't normally see on Grim. People normally preferring Crunch. Crunch obviously having more power points. Also, the defense drop chance is pretty good. I believe Lash Out helps though versus Quillfish. And although we haven't seen as much Quill lately, it's still a good mon. And here, yeah, I mean, Scarf Primeape going for Gunk Shot, doing a whole 54. Just run Passimian. Just run Passimian. At the very least, you have a real mon. And then Siri, kind of aggressively going for his Terra Fairy there. I'm unsure that it mattered, but this is a kind of good instance you can see of where this maybe would have been eventful to have your Terra still. He obviously Terra Fairy'd because he didn't want to get suckered. I believe Mikhail just went for a player off there, predicting the possibility of this going for like CM, not wanting to play a risky game there because maybe CM Jolteon could actually win this game. You know, if it's Terra Ice, for example, yeah, I mean, that is actually a possibility. Even Terra Fairy, is a possibility if you get a free Calm Mind off. But here, you wish you had your Terra. Because imagine it's Terra Ghost, and you just Volt Switched on the Grim, and you had Terra Ghost Shadow Sneak. You two-shot this. You Oko that, you KO that. Terra Ghost to Sid would actually give you some out, especially with a Fire Blast miss here. So a little food for thought there. I think Siri made the right play. I think you do Terra Fairy there. But, you know, it's one of those, you look at, in hindsight, damn. One little different use of Terra could have potentially changed the entire trajectory of this game. Because you see here, this just gets two-shot. But maybe it could have worked out a little differently. Because if this goes for its Terra, again, especially you take into account this missed Fire Blast, it would have been a full health Decidueye versus Gligar. You could easily Sword Stance up on that. Knock into EQ might KO you, but hey, we see there's a roll to live EQ. You probably honestly just attack it twice with like Shackle and Elite Blade anyway. But you might be able to get enough chip on it there for the Jolteon to KO with a raw Terra Blast, and maybe there's an out, I don't know. I think it still would have been very dicey, but something to think about. Anyhow, next game, we finally get our Friezai game of the video. And I remember everyone in the NU Discord was very, very disappointed by Friezai's team. Pokeslice apparently passed him a team this week. And you can tell because this is the most boring build I've ever seen. What is this Chansey and Avalugg Gligar H-Trode nonsense? What is this? There's nothing fun here. There's nothing interesting. There's nothing clickbaity for the title. I brought an unseen ice type to a big turn. Come on. Friezai could do better than this, Pokeslice. Friezai could have done better. You betrayed him. And you betrayed me. But worst of all, you betrayed the viewers at home. Anyhow, though, there's a very interesting battle. You're going to see the limitations of the Chansey and Avalugg core here. I've talked a lot in the past about how Gligar fixes a lot of the issues fundamentally that core has, but that there are still some pretty pressing ones. One of them's a glass tier, and there's a glass tier. This mon doesn't even have to do anything, though, until like the last 5 turns of the battle. What actually ends up destroying this tier, this core, is Mesprit. And why is that? Well, one thing you'll notice is there is no psychic resist in the core, but you might not, you'll immediately think, oh, well, why does that matter? Chansey walls special attackers. Psyshock. Psyshock is huge here, because Avalugg isn't going to do enough to you to where you're really caring about it, right? You're just going to set up versus the Avalugg. And the Chansey, well, the Avalugg, if it stays in for any amount of turns, it gets dicey real quick, because Mesprit can look for more than one boost. Does Chansey stop a +4 Mesprit? Not really. So we see the Luglid, and here's Skunklead. You will switch. Mesprit comes out predicting, some kind of attack. It's gonna tank, though, right? And here, now he goes for Nasty Plot. And Friezai makes a little bit of a misplay going for the in. I think he might have expected this more offensive. Ice Spitter would have done a lot more then. And then he makes another misplay here, and he goes for T-Wave. I think I would always S-Toss here. I don't think you can risk this mon going for sub. If you'll remember the video that Joey and I did with Klefki, how we kind of did the same mistake, where we T-Waved a Hoopa with our Chansey, and it just subbed up and then beat us down. Same thing's gonna happen here. Psyshock's an easy 2-shot, and immediately Friezai loses Chansey. Now, it's not even that bad, this kind of game, because what else is Chansey checking here? But then this happens, and he loses Mismagius. Now, a lot of us in the Discord were surprised that Watashi didn't go for his Terrastalize there, but preserving it, honestly, I think he just weighed in his mind after seeing that Mesprit lived to Shadow Ball anyway. He said, I may as well, keep the Terra for later in case I need it. So, pretty well done by him. And we're going to see also just one of these like small plays that you kind of just need to appreciate when you see them, because it's kind of cool. Mesprit just bringing it in on after the U-turn to get that little lefties, and then you pivot back up Chansey because, well, you can. It's just, again, it's those tiny little bits of a battle that are always cool to see. Knowing you may as well try and get Mesprit a little healthier in case it's needed for later on. The Chansey trades, though, now versus the Gligar for a little bit. This is, nothing we've not seen before. And if Friezai sets the spike that you can't see. What if I switch the sides? There we go. Okay, so that's a quick fix. They updated all this and they still didn't fix that. Damn. But now you're going to see Watashi almost lose the battle. Now, I don't actually think he was ever losing the battle from this point. However, it still is very scary. And this is actually, too, where preserving his Terra is useful. And we'll explain why by the end of the game. But this turn here could have been a lot worse. Unfortunately for Freezeye, he Terra Darks and full Paras. Now, this was Scarf's gun tank, like we mentioned with Foul Play. This damage roll from Sucker Punch was technically within range. It was like a 33% chance, I think, or 30-ish% chance to KO Skunk with that Sucker Punch. Assuming Jolly. If he was Adamant Croak, I think Adamant Toxic Croak may have actually just always O-code, or just about always O-code. But why do I say that this may have not mattered at the end of the day? Well, Avalugg comes out now. Gligar is going to get sacked. Oh, just get out of here, Gligar. Goodbye. And now we're going to see Big Horse come in. And this horse says, I've had enough, and he Terra Ghosts. So this is why I said I don't know if it actually mattered or not that the Croak got full parried there. Because Glass would have come out the next turn and gone for Terra Ghost. Like we said, this is where it actually was very impactful that Watashi preserved his Terra. Because he, one, had it for the Avalugg anyway, so he always 1v1s this. It's not like there was a question, but just in case, right? He would have been able to take it on if this wasn't Rapid Spin or something. But the Ghost would have also let him beat the Croak. Now, it could have been Knockoff, but as we've seen lately, a lot of these are actually running Ice Punch because Gligar is so prominent. That people are saying, Knockoff's great and all. Ice Punch a little bit more practical, though, in this current meta. So, there's a pretty high chance that Terra Ghost Glass would have just won the game anyway. Because he would have Iron Defensed all the way up to +6. Croak would have Terastallized into a Dark type. So it would have been weak to Body Press as well. And it should have been, at that point, a pretty trivial win for Watashi. And now we get to the last game. Good for it eternally facing Avarice. Avarice has had quite a strong start to SCL since entering NU. They're up 2-0 now on the season. Now they face Makotiel. And Avarice, once again, kind of bringing, not like an unstandard team, just one that's a little bit off the beaten path nonetheless. Because it's like, you don't see a lot of Bronzong. You don't even really see a lot of Heracross. And they brought out some sets like Specs Goodra, which aren't too common anymore either. There's also Scarf Cross, so it's not even running like the Guts, Facade, Trailblaze stuff that I would say has probably been most common when I've used and seen Heracross. So, definitely an interesting preview. The one thing I would say for preview, this Grimmsnarl obliterates Avarice's team. I mean, it soft checks this through Sucker. Soft checks this because it's Assault Vest, by the way. But also just because, you know, you can pivot on the Draco. Goodra also revealing its Specs is even worse for the Grimmsnarl matchup because you ever Draco a Grim, well, guess what? That's not good. And something like Gligar, well, it's, you know, it's Grim. Like, you just crunch and you don't care. If you have to switch, you can switch. This mon also does learn Ice Punch, so if it's got that, well, the Gligar would be getting folded up. We also do have the Demon Worm. And Earthworm, this game actually has quite a strong matchup, especially with Terra Ghost. You're going to wall this. With enough Iron Defenses, you'll wall this. Or, not Iron Defenses, Coils, you'd wall this. Goodra is a little scary, but if you get the sub up, I mean, you're going to force to take some chip. Heracross, like we said, doesn't beat you. Gligar doesn't beat you. Salazzle can Encore you, so it's really just a matter of, hey, pray the Salazzle doesn't have Encore. So we see Goodra led versus Mesprit, and we see it's very Specs, because, wow, 86. And Eternally just leads off with his Mesprit, gets his rocks up, and then brings in the Snarl because, well, he knows that damage. And you see what has been... we see what Eternally is labeled as the Avarice debacle, where he got hit by a Hypnosis Bronzong. This actually is really bad for him. Because, yeah, this Grim is kind of needed this game. It does a lot. I think, honestly, maybe it would have been a little better to stay in there. He just didn't want to risk, like, Heavy Slam or something coming out. And he goes Mesprit anyway, and gets a little bit of health back. Mesprit is nice to have at higher HP too for checking the Heracross. You do want to have something like switch it to CC. Mesprit's one of those ones that can. Taking that Bronzong also is good. Anyhow, nice little spin comes out here. Eternally switches into Mesprit, actually dodges a Fire Blast here. I think he was maybe even considering just sacking Mesprit here. So the dodge is kind of funny. And he doubles back to Cole. Dodges another. This one's kind of just inconsequential because the Cole's going to slowly tick down anyway. But, hey, I mean, now he gets a little spiky spike. As I will now, once again, switch sides so I can actually see the little spike up. Nicole slowly just getting KO'd. He actually gets a little bit extra chip on the Gujar too, so... I mean, long term, this wasn't a bad sequence. Avarice also just used Fire Blast 5 times in a row. Absolutely insane. And this was one of the turns that I absolutely... yeah. This was, yeah. Let me gather my thoughts real quick. I want to talk about the first turn. It was kind of wild anyway. I think Bronzong going for Hypnosis versus Grimmsnarl was kind of weird. It was a risky play that worked out a lot. I think just it went for Hypnosis because it didn't want Grim going for Bulk Up. But Avarice figures, I mean, hey, look. I either get maimed by Bulk Up Grim and I don't try to sleep it, or I land the sleep and I'm a little bit okay. I can try and reposition. This play is insane, though, because why am I Terra stealing versus a Toxicroak? And why is it working? Because it went for Doc. Like, this was Scarf Croak, right? I think the idea is you want to scout for Ice Punch here. And I think Avarice just said to himself, hey, there's surely no way I'm ever getting close combat in here, right? So Terra Steel covered the potential for the Gligar read. But, yeah, I wouldn't think in a million years that would work out. Eternally does pick off the cross here. Unfortunately, Salazzle's kind of scary at this point because he doesn't have his Croak anymore. He doesn't have his Cole anymore. And his AV Grim's asleep. So he makes Terra Blast chip here. Gets a little bit of damage off. This is in Volt range now. As Avarice does read the T-Bolt there very nicely. Now you gotta go into Worm. As U-Turn unfortunately comes out. I mean, I guess you could say Terra Blast again would have been a little better. You just don't want Jolteon getting super, super low and it being very easy to deal with. Yeah. We're going to see the Grim also not wake up there. Very unfortunate. I think if it did, there was actually an out, because if that gets a sucker off, then I believe Worm actually wins. Once again, eternally vaulting into the Gligar. Very unfortunate. But you actually do see here, there's still an out. Full disclosure. Wow. What are you disclosing to me, Avarice? Please, tell me. But there's actually an out here still because the Worm comes out and he can coil here always. And Eternally still has his Terra. So he goes for coil. And this was Earthquake as well, by the way. I think it actually could have done something. As Eternally does switch there, fearing the Encore. Doesn't come out. I was talking with Eternally and he said he thinks maybe it was better to just see if this didn't have Encore and just go for another attack. He Terra Ghosts here. Misses an Iron Tail, which might have KO'd Lazzle from that range. I honestly don't know. Body Press comes off a higher attacking stat, but Iron Tail is a very, very strong move with stab, so probably did KO. And, I mean, he didn't want to have to Terra this game because, well, Grim beats you down a lot more effectively. Maybe it's just going to crunch, right? Or maybe even Sucker Punch you. There is actually a shot Grim would have, not had Sucker, and just been outsped by this and gotten Iron Tailed in the face and died. Albeit kind of unlikely, still could have happened. But yeah, some tough turns this game for Eternally, and Avarice ends up getting away with a pretty close win, all things considered. Because, like I said, I think this Worm could have won it. I do think this Worm gets a turn or two different. You know, it's funny, I even messaged Eternally like, yo, if you were Earthquake Earthorb, I think it actually could have won. Because he would have been going for Earthquake instead of Body Press. And then these two ones definitely don't beat you then. So just kind of funny to see there. Well, that's it for, I believe this was week 6. So we head into week 7. I do know Togki is back in the starting lineup. It'll be interesting to see what she brings. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Shoutouts to Charm Chansey. Gonna make a great title. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Thanks for your support. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Leave a like. Comment down below what your favorite... What was your favorite Pokemon that you saw used this week? Just pick any mon from one of the replays here. What's the favorite of yours that you saw? I'll catch you next time, though. Peace.